Well, hi everybody, and welcome to a new year. Welcome to 2021, and I can't believe we're only on the 7th of January. It feels like it's like the 150th of this year, with all the things and changes that have happened. I wanted to start the show by explaining the absence of my co-host, Bookie Youssef. Unfortunately, she has contracted COVID-19, and she is resting up and getting herself well. She's better than she was when I spoke to her earlier in this week. So please do use the chat, get onto social media, send her your well wishes, as we all have over the course of this week, wishing her a speedy recovery. Please know, Bookie, if you are watching, I probably aren't watching this live, but if you do watch it back, please know that you are very much missed, and we are very much looking forward to having you back on the show in the very, very near future. I'm not going to do a review of 2020 because I don't really want to spend too much time thinking about that year. In fact, if we could just erase it, then that would be probably a good thing to do. But there were lots of positives to come out of last year, even though it was a really difficult year. And one of the positives for me was the UK Edu Stories show. It's something which has come on leaps and bounds, and we've had so many thousands of hours of self-directed learning by educators using the show as a means of connecting, learning with others, learning from others, teachers with real stories, working with real children in real schools, coming on and sharing on the show. It's something that I'm really, really proud of, being able to put together for sharing with people all around the world during the course of the year. And what a fantastic way we were able to end 2020 on the show with our Teach Meet. 21 different presenters, a fantastic keynote from Dr. Jill Berry. Hi Jill, if you're watching. And one of the presenters on the Teach Meet, and somebody who was a guest previously, very kindly agreed to join me as a sort of special co-host, helping me do things on the show this evening, in the form of someone who I've got a lot of respect for, someone who I've grown to know and admired through their sharing on social media for a long time before we eventually connected and got to know each other, and is someone that I've got a lot of time for. She is someone who's been a senior leader for a long time, 8 years I think she was a senior leader. She now works and supports senior leadership teams and teachers professionally in and around Bradford and Leeds, but also does so every day. If you look at her timeline on Twitter, you'll see she really does not just talk a good talk, but she walks a good walk as well, which is always a good sign of someone who's a good leader. She's into restorative practice and relational leadership, and I'm really pleased and proud to be able to welcome as my co-host this evening on the show, Zena Zenanos Walker. So welcome, Zena. I hope that's a little bio of you did you justice, because
that was really sweet of you. Thank you.
That's all right. No, a real pleasure, and thank you so much for stepping up to join us this evening. How was your New Year break? How did you get on over New Year's?
Yeah, no, absolutely fine. And then obviously all the madness that's kicked in the first week of 2021 has been pretty daunting. But we've got to stay positive. We've got to see that we're all in this together, and hopefully some brighter things will happen in the near future for us all. So fingers crossed. But can I just take this opportunity to wish Bookie well as well, because she's just wonderful. So get well soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Our thoughts really do go out to her. I saw something funny on social media the other day, and it was like, when you buy something, you get a 7-day trial. It's like, I've tried 2021, I don't like it. Can I give it back? Can I give my money back, please?
I'm terrible for things like that. Every time I take a trial on something, I always forget to cancel it at the end of the trial, and I end up looking a year later at my bank statement going, why am I paying £52.75 for something I've never... Right, here we go again. So now I don't do any of those free trial things ever.
Oh no, that happened with me with Amazon Prime actually over Christmas. I was going to get rid of it, and then Christmas happened, and then the next thing, their bank statement, I'm like, oh, flip. So yeah, these things do happen. But we're back in remote learning again, and Bookie and I wanted to start with be frank, a bit of an easier show actually to coordinate this one, and actually it's quite a timely show to do. Tonight's show is looking at how we can use PowerPoint, and I use PowerPoint in a generic term, in the generic way actually, Zena, because there are so many different types of presentation tool out there, and different schools use different tools based upon the sort of stuff that they have in the background. So one school might use Microsoft 365 as their sort of infrastructure. Some schools might use Google Suite, other schools might use that and then have Apple devices and be so during the course of the show this evening, I sort of called this show one where we're going to sort of investigate how we can use PowerPoint to help and support learning. And so that's the focus for the show this evening. Big shout out there to everybody who's watching. Please do say hello in the live chat. Zena's ready to take any questions as well. I won't be able to see much of what's being said and shared and all the rest of it during the course of the show while I'm presenting and things this evening. However, if you've got questions about how you could, I know Zena's got a question she brought from work actually, talking about how you can incorporate PowerPoint into Teams, for example. So if you've got a question about how you can use presentation tools, then please do drop your questions into the live chat. But I'd also love to hear from you and hear how your Christmas and New Year break was, and all of that sort of stuff. And you're very welcome to join us this evening, and thank you very much for doing so. So shall I just jump straight in and do that sort of presentation-y thing then, Zena? Is that okay?
Could. And I might stop you and ask you some questions, because I'm not an ICT guru, so if I've got any questions, I might just stop and ask you.
That's absolutely fine. And something that a lot of people don't know actually, Zena, whilst I taught ICT and computing for the majority of my career, I'm actually a business and economics teacher. So, you know, a question I often sort of share with teachers and with school leaders is how is it that I'm someone who doesn't really have a sort of pedigree of training and all this with technology and computing. Now, I taught A-level computing for many years as well. But how is it that someone who doesn't really have that background, how are they able to still teach that subject, use it effectively, and all those sort of things? And actually, it's a bit like riding a bike, you know. You need to practice at it, you need to stick at it, and just keep going. And I'm pretty confident that I will get something wrong tonight. You know, things do go wrong with technology. You know, when we did the test run for tonight last night, you know, we had audio issues, we had to install Chrome, we had to do a whole load of things. But look at us now. It's like we've been doing it for months and months, and it's just, you know, just what we do all the time. Exactly. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to start talking through a few things related to the use of technology in education. I've got a presentation here ready. Can you see my screen there, Zena?
I can.
Brilliant stuff. So I'll go full screen and I'll just start talking through some of this stuff. And it's a mixture of presentation and demonstration during the course of the evening. And on top of this, I'm using my MacBook to do some of these things this evening. And I mentioned before about how there's different tools. The three main tools that people use for making presentations in education are either PowerPoint. I would say PowerPoint's probably number one. Number two is probably Google Slides, if you're a Google school. And then the third one, particularly if you're an iPad or an independent school particularly, is using Keynote on Mac and or iPad. I'm using Keynote here for this, but I have got my Surface next to me just to the side over here, and I've got some things I'm going to share with you in PowerPoint itself and some things in Teams later on. A key thing to remember is actually, and this goes actually to the way in which I think children should learn about software for learning themselves, that sort of metacognition around and the thinking about using technology to support their own learning, because it's not about a particular brand. Actually, there are differences between the three tools, obviously, but like educators, there's more that unites us than divides us. Lots of the things that you can do in Keynote, you can do in PowerPoint, you can do in Google Slides. So the things I'm going to share with you in Keynote now, you can do just as easily excuse me, in PowerPoint and or Google Slides. Before I actually start, something that I want to spend some time on during this session as well, and it's something I'll dig into a bit more deeply later on in the session as well, but making sure that you don't have too much information on your slides is really, really important as well. Cognitive load theory, for example, you don't want to have too much on there. Dual coding is really important as well. Accessibility is important too. Using colors and backgrounds that actually work and contrast well, so things are really legible and easy for students to see if they're at the back of the classroom and so forth and so on. Or if you're in remote learning, then obviously lots of our learners will be accessing some of these materials on their phones as well. And so a slide which looks like this one, and I didn't actually make this one here is from the Education Endowment Foundation, but there are features.
The slide is just a black slide at the moment, is that right?
It's not a black slide at the moment, no. It should.
That's what we're seeing at the moment.
Oh, that's interesting.
There you go, first tech problem.
So hopefully that will come up in just a moment. Maybe it's a little bit of lag.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm seeing though is essentially what I can see right now is a slide with a whole ton of text on it, and that's not really helpful to anybody. If it's been printed out and that sort of thing, it's really useful as a reckoner and all that sort of stuff. But when we're thinking about supporting our learners from home, less is definitely more when it comes to what we can see on screen. So hopefully, I'm just going to put. Please tell me as well if you can't see things when I do what I'm about to do. Okay, I'm just going to pop my stuff full screen a second now. Can you see my screen full screen now, Zena?
No.
Okay, well, I did say I wanted things to go wrong. I didn't necessarily want them to go wrong quite so quickly. But let me just stop my screen a second and come back, and I'll reshare my screen, and hopefully that will all kick in and be good for us. So sharing my screen again, jumping back into Keynote. Can you see Keynote now, Zena?
I can.
Fantastic. So it is about PowerPoint for learning, but PowerPoint being a more generic term for presentation tools in general. And hopefully I've sort of covered that in a little explanation. Now you can use presentations for lots of different purposes. Why would you choose to use a presentation? And just to balance check, Zena, can you see that I've changed slides now? Is that all still working?
Yeah, we're all good now.
Brilliant. Brilliant, thank you ever so much. So why use presentations? Well, there are loads of reasons why as educators we would want to use a presentation tool. We might want to use it to just share information. It could be the learning outcomes for the lesson. It could be all sorts of things. It could be you want to use it to explain things. It could be that you want to use it to share some key words. It could be that you want to share some resources. Lots of people, my son, for example, via Class Dojo this week has been receiving PDF versions of PowerPoint slides, which have got all of his home learning activities on for each of his particular lessons. You can also use it to share different types of activities. You can use it to create resources as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you have to present from. And I've got a whole ton of different resources that I'm going to be sharing with you that I've made using PowerPoint over the years during the course of this session tonight as well. And so not only can you do all these things, you can actually create the activities in here as well. You can use it to model concepts. You can use it to model ideas, and there's just so many uses for PowerPoint in the classroom. It is absolutely phenomenal, and it is not just a presentation tool, although that is its use at its heart. You can use it in so many different ways. A place that I often go to try and help steer me in the right direction for all sorts of things, teaching, learning and leadership, is the Education Endowment Foundation's Teaching and Learning Toolkit. And back in March 2019, Kathy Lewin from Manchester Met University and a bunch of other people created a report which sort of took a whole load of research into what works for teaching and learning with technology and broke it down into 4 sort of key recommendations on how to use technology impactfully to improve children's learning. This was the diagram that I wanted to show you before. Now, what I'm going to do as I sort of talk through the next few slides, what you can, as I said when I was explaining this, when you couldn't actually see this, was there's too much text on the slide there in order to better see it all. And what you can do really, really simply as a teacher, okay, is you can duplicate slides. And it's called in Keynote Magic Move. In PowerPoint itself, it's called morph. And all you have to do is create one slide like you can see here right now. And then what you do is you duplicate that slide a few times. And then you put a transition effect onto those slides called morph if you're in PowerPoint, or magic move if you're using Keynote. As far as I'm aware, you can't do this currently in Google Slides. But what you do is you duplicate those slides a few times. And then on all the subsequent slides after the first slide like this, you just increase the size of the image that's on the slide so you can zoom into different bits. And what the tool will do is as you move from one slide to the next, it will then zoom in to the section that you've actually. So what you're doing is you're sort of focusing the learners on exactly the thing you want them to be looking at any given time. So all I've done to make that happen is I've made the one slide like this. I've then duplicated it 4 times. I think 5 times actually. The final one is back looking just like this. But the first one zooms in and goes to the number 1. And then I on the next slide, I just move the image across to the left a little bit. So this happens. And it does all these little animations just by themselves. And then when I go to the end, when it should, there you go, bring it back like that. And it looks amazing. You're like, wow,
I like that.
Wow, that's stunning. Oh, you're so clever. And I'm like, yes, I am so clever. I'm not so clever. It's not a clever thing. But it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know, do you? So that's a lovely little hint I wanted to sort of share right from the outset. And what I want to do is just focus a second on this section here from this report, because one of the things that they spend time talking about in the report is where they talk about how you can use technology to improve the quality of explanations and modeling. And I think this is where, and you can read a little bit underneath about how it can explain and model new concepts and ideas and all this sort of stuff. It goes on underneath to talk about how they're conveyed is less important than their clarity. And so what we can do is make it really, really clear what those concepts are by using simple tools like this magic move. And animations inside PowerPoint are often, used really, really badly. I remember my students, year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, if you ask them to create a PowerPoint presentation, they would often spend more time, making the text go than actually focusing on the content, and that makes it a bit difficult sometimes. But when we're creating our resources ourselves as teachers, we can use this sort of functionality to be really helpful to us in how we explain things to our learners so that it comes through and has the best sort of impact. So
I'm
the
going to
report goes on
for 2 seconds.
Yeah, of course you can.
Wonderful Nikki has asked, where is morph again, please?
Morph is on, if you're in PowerPoint, on the transitions tab, you'll see morph as the top option on the left hand side next to none. It's in between none and fade. And what I'll do, Nikki, when I move over to my surface in a moment, I'll show you exactly where that morph option is on the toolbar inside PowerPoint. Okay. Thank you, Zena. Thank you, Nikki, too, for the question. Appreciate that. So in the report, they go on to say the technology has the potential to help teachers explain and model new concepts and ideas. And what I've done there is something that I rarely advocate for. What I've done is I've read the information that's on the actual slide. Particularly when you're presenting to adults, there's no real need to actually read the content on the screen. You can just move yourself through and use, because the animations that you use as well, it isn't just about transitions and morphing things as well. It's about bringing the right information onto the screen at the right time when you want to actually are working properly. So as I say, is about clarity, relevance, and accessibility. The clarity comes from the animations and not having too much information on the screen and bringing it through at the right time. The information has to be relevant to what you're talking about when you're talking about it. And then using colors that contrast and work well to enable and facilitate accessibility so that all learners can access the content that you're trying to share with them. So clarity, relevance, and accessibility are the key things to try and take away when you're presenting. And the same is true if you're presenting to adults as it is if you're presenting to children. And even more so importantly, if you're working with really, really young children. Because cognitive load can overpower and overwhelm, and linking cognitive load to dual coding as well can really have an impact on your efficacy as a teacher when you're sharing using these sorts of resources.
I think when
if you're not sure
so much on the screen, and I know somebody who's quite visual, but I want to be listening to what you're saying at the same time. If I feel like I have to read what's on the screen and listen, I get a bit, bewildered with it all. So I think less is definitely more if what you've got to say is really important. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
From Jessica. What's one top tip you'd share about online learning?
One top tip I share about online learning: keep it simple. It's not about the tool, it's none of those things, but keeping things as simple as possible. And that relates not just to the tools you're using, but to how you share information as well. Chunking things into short bite-sized tips. If you're making like explainer videos about a topic, don't talk like, again, I'm being a bad advert for it myself tonight, but don't go on for an hour on a topic. Break things up and chunk it into small bits of information. Asynchronous videos are super helpful. So creating those videos really, really useful, but don't spend 45 minutes on a particular topic. Try and break that topic down into really bite-sized chunks. And again, that helps with load. It helps with focusing learners on what they should be focusing on, and all those different things. And there are loads of tools you can use to facilitate screen recording and doing all those sort of things, from Loom to the built-in screen recorders on your Mac or on your Chromebook. If you're on a Chromebook, you can use things like Loom there as well, Screencastify. But Macs and PCs all have screen recording software built into them that you can use as well. And if you're a PowerPoint user, as I'll show when I move on to PowerPoint in just a moment, there you can record your screen in PowerPoint. And if you've got Microsoft 365, what's really useful about that is it then saves it into Microsoft Stream, which means you can then repurpose it into lots of different places. You can embed it directly into OneNote. You can bring it straight through and drop it into channels in Teams. There's great accessibility and access to that content once you've done it. But the key thing is just keep it simple. Sorry, Zena?
You are going to show us how to do this, aren't you?
I am. Which bit?
The embedding videos from PowerPoint into well.
Do you mean embedding videos into PowerPoint?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I can show you how to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, the three presentation tools have different ways of doing it. The tools I would suggest that do embedding of videos best are PowerPoint and Google Slides. But I'll show you that in just a while when I move over to the Surface. So about cognitive load, if you don't know what cognitive load is, there are three types of things related to cognitive load. You've got intrinsic cognitive load, and that's to do with how hard something is, how difficult the actual topic is. So if I was talking about I don't know, push-pull demand or income elasticity of demand or something, something quite complicated on an economics topic, then that in and of itself is quite difficult a concept to understand. So there's cognitive load around that, and you would think carefully about how you introduce that topic, again keeping it simple, based upon the prior knowledge of your learners and things. So that's something to really, really consider. And it will then relate to the resources that you create for your learners. The other thing is extraneous cognitive load, and that's load is generated by the way something is presented. So if I go back to that education data foundation slide I showed you before, if I'd went dun and put that in front of you straight away, your mind's just going to be all over the place. You'll be trying to read it, you'll be distracted, you're trying to be listening to me and read it at the same time. You're not really going to pick that much up from just sitting there and having someone read all that information to you. So using tools like that the morphing or the magic move like I showed a moment ago really helps to focus people in the right way. And that links to the third thing, which is your main cognitive load, where you incorporate elements to aid information processing. And again, it's simple things like I've done there in how I've explained those three things there. I didn't put them all on the screen at the same time. I could have, but I didn't, because it would generate too much load and you wouldn't understand it all as well. I want to share a really super simple tip with you right now, though. Can you see that on the third bullet point at the end of that final sentence there's a full stop? But I haven't. I know it's not grammatically correct to not use a full stop everywhere, but when you're dealing with long lists, using animations, often, and this was a tip I picked up from an absolute IT legend, Andy Hutz, who's an old friend of mine. He shared this idea of a Teach Me I organised 15 or so years ago, but putting a full stop at the end of the final thing that you're animating on a slide is a lovely little visual cue for you as teacher when you're sharing in front of your students or making a video or whatever, that's the last thing in your list. So just popping a full stop at the end like that is a really lovely way of being able to see all those different things, being mindful of where the end of that list is, because sometimes in the heat of the moment when you're recording, it's really easy to forget where you're at and how much you've got to go and so forth and so on. So simple little tip, put a full stop at the end of your final bullet point, and that will be a visual cue for you to know that's the end of your list and there won't be anything else underneath it or anywhere else for you to cover, so you know exactly what's going to be happening after. Now, this slide here serves as another example. As educators, we all know about the feedback loop, what it is, and all the rest of it. Now, there's lots of information on here, but what I've done on the next slide is I've done a different version of the exact same slide where I will explain what the feedback loop is. I'm not going to sort of teach you how to suck eggs, but this is a slide which really highlights how helpful just using simple animations can be when it comes to explaining things. So, with that in mind, so what is the feedback loop? Well, the feedback loop is where a student will do some work. It could be some handwritten work, it could be a product they're making, it could be a digital artifact, it could be all sorts of things. But what they do is they hand it to you as the teacher. When you receive that as the teacher, you do something with it. You'll mark it, you'll leave some verbal feedback. Using technology is a great way of giving feedback, because you can use audio feedback rather than spending lots of time writing things, which isn't very accessible for many learners as well. And when you then give that feedback to your students, they are then able to take those regular and specific improvement points so that you can close the learning gap and their learning is informed. And that's really important, because as teachers, we have to differentiate and we try to adapt what we're doing based upon student responses so that we're responsive to the needs of our learners. Now, can you see, Zena, how just by using those simple animations, that makes the explanation of that topic much clearer, because you're being directed into the right spaces on the slides.
Yeah,
and it's not
absolutely.
And it's not rocket science, is it?
No.
No.
And I think too often when, especially when I've sat through some CPD or, some presentations at school, they seem so, I don't want to say boring, it's not boring, but they are, they're not something that keeps me wanting to look and listen. So something that would be animated or be brought in different ways, I think would be really just a really good way of keeping people interested and wanting to keep looking and listening. So yeah, I like
brilliant.
that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Zena. I've gone ahead of myself here. See, I've put too many slides in and I've got my old presentation wrong as well. Has it gone black again for you by any chance?
Yeah.
I thought that might happen, because that's what happened last time when I did that. So I'm just going to stop sharing and then come back again, and it will all work lovely like so. So we can use that sort of stuff as well when it comes to explanations and modelling.
No, we can't hear you, Mark. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Hello.
My headphones just died. That's absolutely fine. So here's a maths example. Now you could have all this information on the screen and you could talk through it and all the rest of it and so forth and so on. But if you're using a device where you've got sort of visual versions of it, then you can, rather than having it all displayed on one time, better would be to actually animate the various sections like you've seen already. So there's the question, and you talk to the students. Now, if you're using a Windows device with a touch screen, you can actually just write on the screen using your finger, or if you've got a Windows stylus or something like that, you can use those sorts of things. If you're doing it with images, you can actually just bring it through step by step, like we can see here, and talk things through as the learners say things as well. We can do all these things in different steps so that we're bringing things through at the right time and having conversations about the specific bits as and when it's relevant to that specific question. This really does tie in really closely to that advice from the Education Endowment Foundation about how we can improve the quality of our explanations and modelling. So hopefully that's been really, really clear. The next thing I want to share with you as well is about how we can actually use PowerPoint for creating our own resources. I use PowerPoint for making resources all the time. Here's a keyword challenge card. So you just it's a resource that you can do digitally, or you can print it out or handwrite the keyword onto there if you're doing it through digital inking on your Surface or whatever you've got. But you can make these resources so quickly. It's just text boxes. It looks pretty because I've got a slightly different font on there to what you're used to. This one here is called Luckiest Guy. It's a font I use quite a bit. But it's a lovely way of creating resources, not just for things like this, but if you wanted to create a timeline for your learners. And another thing, often as teachers, we'll show something like this and be really proud of it, and then we'll say to our students, right, off you go, then everybody, I want you to make your own timeline, and then expect them to do all of the tech work. What we can actually do is use these tools as well to make templates. So why not make a template like this and then share that to your learners, so they haven't got to go through what people like Jules Dolby call the secretarial part of it. If you're a history teacher teaching about timelines, about civil rights movements or whatever, you don't want a student to spend half your lesson making this. You want them to spend half their lesson doing this with it, don't you?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Using the tool to make the resources and then giving that to the learners so that they actually can crack on and focus on the learning content rather than using the tech itself. Again, it's just a simple way to make things better for your learners. I use it to make resources as well. You may recognize the UK Age of Stories promos. I make those in PowerPoint as well. People might recognize this Advent calendar. This is what I made. I made this in PowerPoint myself as well. This is the project I did just for Christmas with my other project, Global EdTech. I use it for all sorts of things as well. I make nice infographics, but you can use these in sessions as well. So if I'm thinking about cognitive psychology strategies to consider, I can talk about cognitive load, I can talk about spaced practice, I can talk about retrieval practice, I can talk about dual coding. But again, I'm taking all these things I'm sharing about bringing things in bit by bit. And then at the end of it, not only have I got a great slide, I've focused the load as I'm working through it. I can also use that as something I can print off, stick up in the classroom, share on social media, all those sorts of things as well. So it's such a powerful tool, using your presentation tool of choice, to make these high quality resources. People might recognize things like this. These are one of my recipes that I made around remote learning. Again, super easy to make all these. They look great, but it is essentially just a PowerPoint slide. Even getting really into some more complicated things. A lot of people know the periodic tables that I make, but if I'm not going to show you exactly because I think it might make the screen go black again, and I don't want that. But all of this has all been made inside PowerPoint.
So can I just ask, how long would something like this take you?
Well, it's one of those things, Zena. Once you've made it once, it's super easy to make another, because it takes time to make the actual template. Once you've made it, all these different, obviously it took me a lot longer to read all these books than it did to actually make the slide. I turned this around in a few hours, because it was a case of I spent more time really getting all the book covers than I did actually setting the different shapes and things and all the rest of it. Because once you've got the rough outline, it's just a lot of copying and pasting and just lining things up. And the tools work really well, because when you're making these things, and this is true in Keynote and Google Slides and PowerPoint, whenever you're sort of trying to line these things up, the various elements will snap as you get close to them being aligned perfectly. So long as you've duplicated them or copied and pasted them, so that they're identical, it's a super easy job just to then line them all up. So yeah, once you've got a template around something that you actually like, just save the presentation with a new name, and then just tweak it and change it for your new purpose. And you can use it.
What a great idea to use PowerPoint as a way to do resources, because I just would never have thought of that. I've always used PowerPoint for presentations. I've never in 15 years used PowerPoint to create resources. It's certainly something I'm going to give a go now. So thank you. And just out of curiosity, that lovely italic font you have there, which one is that one?
The one that says to read today, that font is called Pacifico, PACIFICO. And if you're looking for a great website to find lots of free fonts like that one to download and use, there's a website called dafont.com, DAFONT, and it's got gazillions, that's an actual number, of fonts that you can use and download and stick onto your laptop to use for free. If you're a school that's got Adobe in your school, then Adobe Fonts is really good, and that will actually install all the fonts for you automatically through their font manager. So loads of places you can go to get all these things, but Dafont is my go-to for finding fonts to install and use in the various things that I make. And you can see how quickly it's sort of tracked. I mean, that is nigh on. There's no real difference, because it's just the same template. I have moved everything together, but all I've done is just highlight everything, highlighted all the elements, and then just use the arrow keys on my keyboard to nudge the different elements around, so that it's a bit more pretty and things on the page. People often ask me as well, Zena, where I go for my images to use inside my presentations too. Now, in PowerPoint, actually, and in Google Slides, you can search for images directly within the apps. And what's lovely when you search for images in PowerPoint and in Google Slides is it automatically searches for copyright-free images. Using Bing if you're on a Windows device, and if you're on Google Slides, and obviously it uses Google image search, but it only brings back by default those images which are copyright free. So it's good digital citizenship for teachers as well. But if you're looking for other resources and images to use, then definitely check out this site, pixabay.com. They've got loads of resources there, not just images, but clip art and vector graphics and all those sort of things. So Pixabay is a great resource to go for to help you with your slides. Another site which is also really good is pexels.com, and they've also got stock video images that you can use in all manner of different things you make as teachers as well. Again, they're all copyright free and for you to use inside your different resources. And the final one, and this is probably the one I use the most these days, is Unsplash. Thousands and tens of thousands of images that you can access and use without any worry about copyright issues and all those sorts of things.
Just for those people who don't think it's important to go for the ones that are copyright okay to use, what could actually happen if you use an image and somebody finds out and it's been copyrighted and you're not meant to use it?
That's a really good question, Zena. And to be fair, chances of somebody finding out if you're just sharing it with children in your classroom and no one's ever going to see it and all the rest of it is pretty slim. The issue comes more often when people put these images onto front-facing places, school websites, for example. Companies like Getty and other sort of stock image sites where you have to pay for these images have got software which trawl the internet looking for people who've used those images without them. And now that once they found something, the software will automatically alert the company, and before you know it, you've got a notice to take it down, and you can pay this fee, or it will start legal proceedings, all these sort of things. So that's where it's particularly difficult. But I think teaching is a very morally driven profession, and I think as educators, we've got a moral imperative to not. When I introduced you, I talked about you as being somebody who not just walks to walk, but not just talks to talk, but walks to walk as well. And I think it's important for us as professionals to be professional and to walk the walk as well, which is why I always share about doing things professionally and properly when it comes to those sorts of things. It is tough though. If you do Google image search and tick the box for Creative Commons, finding the royalty-free images, you often can find them, but they're terrible. They're like 2 pixels by 2 pixels, and you make them big so you can see them, and they're all, oh mate, it's really, really tough. So that's some of the basics there with PowerPoint, and so with Keynote and some of the features and the morphing and all of that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to my Surface, and so there's my Surface there, and that is far more and I'm just going to remove the overlay a second actually in the top right hand corner, because you can't see everything quite as much as you would like to. So if I just remove that for a second, there we go. I think it was Nikki who asked the question, where is the morph option? So all you got to do is go to where it says transitions here, just at the top. And when you click onto transitions, you'll see the morph option there. So how do you get that to actually work inside PowerPoint? Well, I'll show that now. This slide here is a picture of me from a project that I did back during the original lockdown with Microsoft and Q as part of the Global EdTech Academy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself bigger. That's an image of me just on top of there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is a nice little shortcut as well, actually, Zena. Many people know Control-C, Control-V for copying and pasting, but you can bypass that by just going Control and D, which is duplicate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to number 2 over here, and I'm going to press Control and D, and you'll see that it's duplicated that slide. So what I'm going to do now on the second slide, which is slide 3, I'm going to get my face, my picture like this. I'm going to sort of make it nice and big like this. There he goes. Okay. And I'm then going to click on slide 2. I'm going to press the Shift key on my keyboard. So I highlight, when I click onto it, slide 3 as well. And what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to click onto morph. When I click onto morph, it will apply that morphing to it, like so. And you can see me moving then from the one place to the other. So if I then just go to full screen on slide 2, I think it's going to move things around quite a bit because it's on slide 1 as well. But if I go to here and run the presentation, there we go. If I now press the button to move to the next slide,
I've never used that. You don't understand how much that's just changed.
It's so easy, isn't it? Yeah, so you just duplicate the slide, change the size on the next slide, apply morph to the actual slide. Happy days. It's that easy.
I'm loving this. I actually told people from my school that I was doing this with you today. So I said, oh, join in if you want to, ask any questions if you want. But I tell you what, I've got a presentation on Tuesday and I'm going to be using this morphing. I love it.
Thank you, Zena. When I was using Keynote before, Keynote on a Mac doesn't allow for annotations on screen. It's not a touch screen device or any of those sort of things. but lots of Chromebooks are, and you can do Office 365, Microsoft 365, PowerPoint stuff and what have you on Chromebooks. If you've got a touchscreen device, having access to some sort of stylus is super useful, because whilst that maths example, great and all the rest of it, but it's a bit of a time drain, to be fair, to do that sort of stuff. But what's really lovely is if I just go to insert a second and just put a new blank slide in a second, let's just try and wait for all of these different ones to come up so I can find a blank slide. There we go. If I now just run this full screen, the ability to just have a blank screen and use it like a slate, like you would a whiteboard in the class. So today, Zena, I'm going to teach you about 2 plus 2. Now, this sort of thing is just so quick and easy and useful. When you press escape to finish your presentation as well, what's lovely is you can press escape and it says to you, do you want to keep those ink annotations? If you choose the option keep, what you can do then, it's kept it. Oh yeah, that's just disappeared. 1 second, I'll just. I think it's the same issue that we had with Keynote on the other one here. Let me just share that screen back into here again, and I'll go in my entire screen again. So is that coming up? Yes, it is. I just need to. It's black again for some reason. Well, I did say I wanted things to not work perfectly, to show things don't always work as you might like. Let's try that again. It's doing that. I'll do share again. There it is, and I can just bring that back in. There we go. So I just pop back into. I think it's when you sort of take it off full screen, it just kills it, doesn't it?
You've got a third person in our screen. I'm going to take this out. There you go.
Okay, cool. Oh, I know why that is. It's fine. Yeah, don't worry. Something else you can do with all of this as well, Zena, if you go to the draw menu, when you have been doing some drawings on the screen, what you can do is an ink replay, and the ink replay will automatically replay the things you've inked on the screen. So if you want to be able to sort of show that process again or show something that you've explained again, just recap exactly for at the end of a lesson or as part of a plenary, those sort of things. It's super easy to do that and re-show it just using that particular feature there.
Nice.
You asked a question earlier, Zena, about how you embed videos into PowerPoint. There's a variety of ways that you can embed a video into PowerPoint. It's on the Inserts ribbon just here. On the right-hand side, you have the option Video. And while I've got you as well, there's a variety of ways you can record your screen in PowerPoint as well. One of those ways is by just doing screen recording just over here. Okay. But what you can do with the screen recording stuff, Zena, if you go into File and then go into your options down the bottom here, I won't go into it to show you exactly how. Well, I might as well, actually. Here we go. So I go into the options just in here, and then go to customize ribbon. What I can find over here is the recording options, and that will then, once you've popped it in, I'm not going to do it now because I've already got it here, but it then adds a new element to your ribbon, and it then keeps all of your different recording options there. And we don't have enough time to go through it today, but you can even use this to bring in Microsoft Forms for assessment for learning quizzes directly into your PowerPoint presentation as well, as you can see just there from bringing in the option from Forms just there. So you can find any forms that you've made already in Microsoft Forms and bring them in and embed them directly inside your PowerPoint presentation as well. It's brilliant. There's so much you don't.
I'm going to need you to show me this afterwards, because that sounds fantastic.
Maybe we could do, I removed that then. Maybe we could do another session if there's an appetite for it. We'll see what people say in the comments. But yeah, to insert a video, if I just jump back onto insert a second, there's a variety of ways in which you can drop videos in. So for example, if I go to the drop down here, if I go to this device, if I've got a video that I've made on my actual laptop, I can use that and go there and then just bring in the video from my device. Windows 10 has got a great she's creating a form of Watch Me. Brilliant stuff. Thank you.
Well, I think please show us how to do it.
Oh, okay. How are we doing for time? I'll see. I've got a few more things I want to show you. If I've got time, I will do it. Okay. Yeah, if you've got a video on site on your laptop that you want to bring in, that's where you bring it in from there. You can also find premium content from the Microsoft stock library if you've got access to that as part of your. Thanks, Jane. As part of your subscription to Microsoft. But the easiest one that I find really is just the online video option, Zena, because lots of teachers want to share resources and videos that are on YouTube, but YouTube itself can bring safeguarding issues about the follow-up comments at the end, the comments you see down the side, all those different things. But YouTube's a fantastic resource as well. So all you've got to do is just go to where it says online video, click on that, and then you just paste the URL in. So if I just go into Edge a second in here, and I go to youtube.com/UK stories, and I'm just going to grab myself a video. Once it comes up, I'm going to go to all the presentations like so, and somewhere there's this one teacher which is just terrible. I think I must have scrolled past it then. Hang on a second. This one here, yeah, this is terrible, this video. Let's grab that one. I'm just going to go into that, and I'll make sure it doesn't play because we don't want to hear it right now. I'm going to go to share and grab the link and copy it. I'll just close that now because that should be copied. Back into PowerPoint like so. Another little tip, keyboard shortcuts. I always go on about keyboard shortcuts, Zena. Do you know how I got from from here to here so quickly?
No.
On your keyboard, you have Alt and Tab keys, don't you? Okay.
Yeah.
If you keep your thumb on the Alt key,
yeah,
and then press Tab, don't let go of your thumb on the Alt key. And can you see, as I press Tab, each time I press Tab, I cycle through all my open applications, and when I get to the one I want to go to, so I want to go into PowerPoint. When I'm at the one I want to go on to, I let go of my thumb, and it takes me straight back to where I wanted to get to. So much quicker than using the mouse. Alt and Tab, yeah, it's a brilliant tool, a brilliant shortcut. So yeah, I'll just go into the space here. I'll press Control and V for paste, or I could right-click in there and choose paste instead. Paste it in like so, hit insert, and then give it a moment or two, and then bish bash bosh, there is that Zena Zenanos lady.
There you go.
And her video is now embedded directly onto my PowerPoint slide.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Happy days.
I'm going to ask you a really quick question.
Go on.
Your background on your PowerPoint, that's something you designed, isn't it?
It's not actually. There's a great Twitter account to follow called Slides Mania, and when we started the Global EdTech project, the designer from Slides Mania, through Alice Keeler, who's also a fantastic follow. I mean, people say I've got a few followers. She's got 164,000 followers. She has as a teacher on Twitter, so that's a lot. But she, through conversation with Slides Mania, got them to develop a bespoke PowerPoint template for us to use for all of our global EdTech stuff. So that's.
Wow.
But if you follow Slides Mania, she.
Sorry, 1 second. That's my mother calling me. Love her.
You can always count on your mums for that, can't you? So the beauty of Slides Mania is they give loads and loads of these templates away for free for you to use inside your presentations and stuff. So please do follow Slides Mania. Hi, and I hope you enjoy the shout out there. Great question. And I should have actually given credit, because credit is super important, isn't it? So I should have given credit to her for the designs. So please do follow Slides Mania. And yeah, there's loads of great resources there. Paid, so some of them are paid for, but there are loads of great resources there.
But if you were to create your own background, how would you stick it on? How would you do that?
Okay, so making your own backgrounds and things, and that's actually quite useful to do that as well, Zena, because it means once you've got like a standard template for it, it means you can always reuse it, and it also means that when you go to the insert and then new slide option, you get all of the different templates that come up with it. Okay, so to do that, you need to create what's called. What you do is you go to. Need to find out where it is now because you're asking me on the flight. You have to set up what's called a slide master. And I'm just going to try and remind myself of where it is. It's not in review. Is it in view? Yeah, here you go. If you go to view and then slide master, if you go to slide master view, then what you see down the left hand side are all the different templates. And all you've got to do is simply, just go to the bottom, make a new one, go through, you'll name that particular slide as what it is. And then when you're finished, you just come out of that by going to close master view, and they'll then be there available for you to access.
I cannot tell you how many times I have just copied and pasted onto every single slide I had to do.
I'll tell you the beauty of it as well, Zena, because if you do it like that, the way that you said you did it before, all those elements, you're forever clicking on them, aren't you? And they're getting in the way and all the rest of it. And what this does, it sort of embeds it into the background. What I would if you want to make some templates for yourself, my strong recommendation is to just open PowerPoint and spend time making a PowerPoint which is just those template slides. Then what you can do is once you've saved that with the slide masters and all the various slides down the side in your masters, is save that as a PowerPoint template. If you save that as a PowerPoint template, then when you open PowerPoint, and this is, you can do this in Keynote as well, you have your custom templates, and so you just open your custom template to start any new presentation, and it will always then be there for you to access as your custom template for any presentations you want to make.
So can I just confirm, because Nikki's just asked, which menu is it again? You go to slideshow.
No, it's the view menu.
Yeah, that's it. Slide
master. And once you're in slide master view as well, you can get really into it with sort of specific layout. You can put grid lines on to help you line stuff up. There's loads of stuff you can do. Another nice one to do as well, actually, with this is the insert placeholder. So often when you start a template, there'll be like a stock image, but you can click on that image and then easily put an image in its place. Okay, or if you've got like a bit like a text placeholder where there's a text box already created, you want to click on that and it's formatted with the right font and all those sort of things. If you go to where it says insert placeholder, you can choose what type of placeholder you want to put in place for what sort of thing on your slide. Okay, so I only explained how you sort of put your backgrounds in and stuff like that. But if you want specific things to happen on slides regularly as well, they're called placeholders, and that's how you put those in as well. But the key thing I would say is, like I said, start it by having a blank presentation. Create all your different slide masters that you want down the left-hand side, and then once you've done that, save that not as a normal PowerPoint file, but save it as a template. But if I just come out of slide master view here a second, in file, go to save as. In here, on the drop down here, save it instead as a PowerPoint template, which is POTX. Save it in that format, and then what that will enable you to be able to do is then when you open a new PowerPoint and you go sort of file and new, it'll be in your custom templates for you to open, and you can then make your own based upon that template you've then developed. All right.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you. We could do this all night, I think.
I know we're almost out of time. I want to do two more things before I finish. I clearly haven't got time for forms. I'm really sorry, but I can certainly come back for another show on this sort of stuff. But I wanted to talk a bit about primary school uses, because often in primary, and I'll just get another blank slide. You want your students. I'll just insert a new slide again that's blank. often you'll want your learners to be able to interact with images and do stuff. Sometimes in early years, year 1, year 2, these sort of things, it's actually about fine motor control and moving things around and all this sort of stuff. So if you start putting some things in, some shapes, and this is why it's useful as well to have your sort of layouts and things in the background as part of a template as well, so that the students can't actually mess it up and stuff. But you can drop some shapes in and do all these different things. You want to enable them to move shapes around or create stuff. If you're doing about angle, or depending on the age of the children, it could be that you want them to do perimeter or circumference or all sorts of things. Make a really simple resource and slide. Thank you, Nikki. And make a simple resource or slide. And then to answer your very, very first question, Zena, which was about how to then share it in Teams. It's not about embedding PowerPoint into Teams. If you're in Teams and running Teams, then you do what we're doing here tonight. If I just jump across now using Alt and Tab, if I just go into Teams here, I could start myself a little meeting, and then I would choose the option to share my screen, and I would share a presentation that way. But everyone has access in Teams to a Files tab. And I want to spend just a few moments before we wrap up sharing something about the files section, because if I was to save that PowerPoint presentation now and put it in straight into this space here, that's go to upload, find the file, upload it, all the rest of it. If it goes directly into this space here, anything you put into here is editable by anybody in the class.
Right. You don't want that.
If you've got any student pretty much I've ever taught, they will go in there and things will get messed up.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is make sure that when you've got a template, or you used that example a second ago where you had a series of slides with some shapes on where you wanted students to do some work on it, it's like a worksheet. What you can do is you can actually bang it into class materials, and anything you put into class materials is copyable, but it's not editable or collaborative by anybody, and nobody can mess it up. Equally, you can do this sort of stuff in the collaboration space, or save it as a resource in OneNote class notebook if you've got all those sort of things. There are many ways to skin a cat, as you well know, Zena. But yeah, there's so many ways you can do it. But what I really hope is, and I think it's the case from some of the feedback I've seen coming through this evening, that you've got some really lovely ideas about how to be more impactful, useful, and nothing. Hopefully as well, I haven't shown anything today that's actually too difficult as well. I'm trying to keep it nice and simple, but hopefully these are all strategies and things that you can take away to help you be a bit more effective with your use of PowerPoint or Google Slides or Keynote, whichever you tend to or choose to use, and to help you a bit with your remote learning. So that's me.
I've taken so much from this. I cannot tell you that instead of sitting down and watching telly tonight, I think I'm just going to play around with PowerPoint, because this is fantastic. Thank you so much.
That's my absolute pleasure. Well, we're at the end of the show, Zena. Thank you so much for coming on, and you've been fantastic, sort of working behind the scenes, dealing with all the comments and everything from the viewers. Thank you so much to everybody who's come along and joined us this evening as well. I haven't seen the comments section, so I don't know who's joined us this evening. Who's been with us this evening, Zena?
We've had Nikki, we've had Jane, we've had Reaper, we've had Jessica, Austin, we've had Dory, we've had quite a few. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Well, listen, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening. Next week's show may have to change a little bit with Bookie being poorly, but please do follow myself and Bookie and Zena on Twitter, and we will make sure you are well aware of what is available as part of the show next week. But please do, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to UK Edu Stories on YouTube, and everything we do will be scheduled onto there. You'll get a notification that way as well, and it means that you'll never miss an episode too. So thank you very much. Happy New Year again, and thank you so much for joining myself and Zena this evening. Thank you as well. Huge thanks to you, Zena, for helping me with the show this evening. I massively appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it too.
I've learned so much. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all right, it's a pleasure. So yeah, thank you, everybody, and that's it for our first episode of 2021. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.